who backs her way down for the deuce. Hamilton leads 52-39. Corvallis misses the three-pointer, but no worries here as Kella Halderson, she's there for the putback, pulls the foul, and it's 52-42. Off the inbound pass, Florence pushes it quickly down the floor to a wide-open Danielle Zahn for two. She then quickly steals the Corvallis inbound pass, which leads to free throws. She'd make one for one of those two, and the final score ends up Florence 55, Corvallis 42.